Welcome to your next edition of Around the Crown podcast, and I am not Gina DePietro. This is Lieutenant Brad Koch, and I am in the Public Affairs Office with the Charlotte Police Department. This is our inaugural CMPD podcast. We thank the city for allowing us this opportunity. Today, I have 4 individuals with me. First, we have Assistant Chief Vicki Foster. She has been on the department just over 28 years. We also have a recruit class president, Frederick Wilds. So we are at both ends of the spectrum there. And then I also have Officer Bruce Edwards, who's been on about 13 years. He works in recruiting, as well as Officer Christina Frazita. She also works in recruiting, and she's been here about 15 years. Welcome, everybody. I appreciate you joining.
Welcome. Good morning.
Good morning.
So what we are going to discuss today is recruitment and what it takes to be a police officer, what kind of things you can expect if you want to be a police officer with the city of Charlotte. And also, I'd love to hear from Chief Foster on what kind of life lessons you've learned as being a police officer and rising very high in our ranks. So I'd like to start with recruit class president, Frederick. You are, for those of you who are just listening and not watching, you do not look like your typical recruit just because you look to be a little bit older.
I am.
So tell us, what is it about this profession that interests you at this stage in your life?
I've always been drawn towards law enforcement. I've been in security for the past 15 years, and I always felt like there was more that I can do than, just security. Not to downplay security, but, I felt like there was always more out there that, I could be doing, especially for the public.
And why is it, so you were doing something obviously before this?
Yes, sir.
And you decided suddenly to join us. At what point was it in your life did you decide that was a career path for you?
I decided back at 23, but I felt at 23 years old, I wasn't the typical 23-year-old person. I was very immature at the time. Felt like I had a lot of growing and maturing to do. And then maybe 10 years ago, the subject came up again about law enforcement. And the young lady that bears my last name was totally against that. So kind of put it on the back burner for a little while. And then last year it came up again. And, we finally had that conversation that I'm not getting any younger. I'm 43 years old now. So I'm kind of like not the oldest person in the class, but I'm one of the more seasoned individual in the class. So I figured it was time to give it a try.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, because you threw out your age there and just exactly.
43.
So you're currently in the academy.
Yes, sir.
Right? And you graduate the middle of April.
April 12th.
Right? And how's that going for you?
So far, so good. Coming in day one, honestly, I did not know what to expect. I guess you can say I was ignorant to the academy as far as what goes on. Day one, I can remember the training officer coming in for roll call that first individual, and the individual said, "Here," and then the training officer said, "How about here, sir?" At that point, I knew it was real.
Yeah, for sure. And what does starting a career in law enforcement mean to you?
It's kind of taken what I've learned over the past years to put it to use to see if I'm really as good as I think I am. I kind of hold myself to a very high standard. So I want to see if those standards are in place to where they're the same level as CMPD.
Excellent. Now, you had to apply
Yes, sir.
to join the department. And how was that application period for you? How was that application process?
It was long, longer than I anticipated. I started the process back in March of 18 with an application. After that, got a call to come in to do the written and the JARPAT, the physical portion of the CMPD process. Guess I was kind of cocky going in on the physical part, and then I started seeing individuals coming out that were failing the physical part. And I was like, okay, it's time to stretch. This is for real. At that point, got selected to come back in for an interviewed, and at that point, it was just email after email of just different paperwork that they needed. One of the biggest things with my recruiter, every time he would send something out, I need this by this day. And because he had told me that I would probably be in the next class, which the class has started now. And I was like, well, depends on how quickly we can get everything in. He could get me into the current class that I'm in. So pretty much when he would send an email out, I would try that day to get that information back to him. So that way it's not on my end holding up the process.
And when did you start your academy class?
On October 22nd, 2018.
Okay. So. And let me throw this over to you, Christina, or
Sure.
Officer Frazita, with a recruiting. Welcome.
Good morning. Welcome.
Tell me, is that about how long it should normally take?
Yeah, just because there's a lot of checks that we have to go through to make sure that we're vetting the right people in and the right people out. We want the best of the best to represent our department and the community. So it's an extremely lengthy process at the beginning. So really, once you get past testing, like Frederick was saying, you get that full application, and that's really when the ball starts to roll and you start to move. And like he was saying, it's really on both the applicant and the background investigator working together, getting those things to the applicant and then getting those things back. Every document is important, and a lot of times some of the lag can come from whether the background investigator has a lot of files to work or the applicant's not responding in a timely manner. So he brings up a great point, is really being on top of it, because that helps the process run a lot smoother.
Okay. Now let me toss this over to you, Chief Foster. You are on the opposite spectrum of your career.
Yes.
Are there any pieces of advice that you can think of that you would give Frederick?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of advice that I would give Frederick. It is different coming in, being a little older, coming into policing. And so, constantly people always feel like they have something to prove, but you bring kind of the maturity level that we appreciate. And I think that, you will learn as you get out there and you're in the field that you'll probably be looked at a lot of times just surely because of age, not necessarily because of police experience, but you'll be looked at kind of as a leader. And so I do think that it's important for you to remember that you are still new, and that even though people are going to look at you that way for the age reason, it's okay to not necessarily have all the answers. And so I think you'll kind of be like that natural born leader. You'll kind of fall into that. But it's okay to not know the answers to everything.
Now, are you, Chief Foster, back to you.
Mm-hmm.
Are you pleased with your career at the point that you're at right now?
At the point that I'm at right now? Right now?
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because I'm retiring very, very soon. Yes, I am. I'm pleased. I'm pleased with where I'm at and the position that I got to. And so I can't say that I'm not pleased with where I'm at right now.
Yeah, that's great. Now, are there any regrets that you have in your career?
Let's see. Outside of riding the first day with a girl that quit and I didn't have a ride home, let's see. I do. I have some regrets. Some, it took me probably half of my career to figure out exactly why I was in police work. So I do regret not figuring it out sooner because, at some point, when you're young and it's like, I need a job.
Right.
And for me, it kind of started that way. And, I needed a job and, I had a minor in criminal justice. And so, it was like, okay, well, let me kind of do something that's in my field. But it took me a very long time to figure out that I was here for the purpose of, obviously, for the community. We all know that, and everybody says that. But the reality of it is I was here to make sure that people were treated fairly from the community side as well as internally in the police department. And it took me a long time to figure that out. So I kind of regret not figuring that out sooner, probably finding my voice a lot sooner. I did find it many, many times, but I didn't realize the worth of some of the things that I've done and said and how it impacted police work and how it impacted CMPD at that time because I was so young and I was just doing stuff and saying stuff and didn't realize that some of the things I did and said had some really, really impactful outcomes for the police department.
Yeah, you have such a strong voice for the police department. You're such a model of, I think, what policing can be. Is it something, are you still proud every day to wake up and pin on your badge?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that I've ever not been proud. There have been times, obviously, that throughout the course of my career and just throughout the course of policing and what's going on in other cities and, other police departments. So obviously, there's been times that I have been ashamed of policing and police work, but not being ashamed of the badge. I mean, because, I know why I wear the badge. And so at the end of the day, it is to protect and serve. And I think that overwhelmingly, the majority of us do that very, very well. And so I'm always proud to wear the badge. I don't think anybody will ever have a situation where they're 100% happy with their career or the trajectory of what has happened in other areas that impacts their career. So obviously, I'm saddened when I see certain things in police departments and in other cities. And so it does reflect upon policing as a whole. I just have to remember that it doesn't reflect upon me as an individual.
Right. Yeah, it is a very unique time in our society for those that are interested in being a police officer. I'm going to get Officer Bruce Edwards here to kind of weigh in on that. Are you seeing, Bruce, because you work in recruiting, are you seeing, how's it like from a recruitment standpoint?
Sure. I mean, as a recruiter, your job is to try to find the best people to fit in the department and bring talent that will do well. We always take pride in the fact that we are hiring folks that we would be proud to stand next to us. That's the first and one of the things that we look at. So it is difficult, but I think part of it also is an education. And I love talking to folks when we go out in the community and just get the misperceptions of what it is that we are charged to do. And what, people think, well, I have to have a background in criminal justice. I have to have a paramilitary mindset and approach to this job. And I always tell them, I said, that's not what we're looking for. It benefits to have folks like that in certain capacities, but not every day, because we're going into the public. We're dealing with people who are going through difficult situations, and I would not want someone to come and deal with my situation and not have a level of sensitivity or being able to understand that pain that that person is going through and have a level of empathy to approach it in a way that would allow that person to get out of that crisis or allow them to see a way to move to deal with that situation. So it is difficult, but I think we need to continue to be honest with ourselves as a community and where we want to go and how we want our police department to go, and not just stand on the sideline, but be part of it. And, if this is the career that you want to do, let's have that conversation and I can guide you through that.
So what if someone's out there listening and they're interested? How would they go about applying?
I would definitely go online. Everything is so easy now. You can go on CMPD.org under Recruiting the Best. There's a lot of information that we try to put on there about things that you should consider prior to applying, things that you should be aware of, and how it fit into you as an applicant, and as well as our open application period, which we do every month, the 1st through the 10th of every single month, and just making sure that you're prepared. And obviously, if you have any questions or concerns, and the information that's online is not able to answer your questions, we're available and we're a phone call away.
Excellent. Yeah. Now I know Frederick, it took about 6 months once he applied for him to start the academy. What's a general timeline on that? How long does that normally take?
I'm glad you asked that, because you had asked that, or Frederick had described it. What I will tell you, it looks different for everyone. For a 40-year-old, it's going to take a little bit more time. You have a lot more life experience. You've probably lived in multiple different places, so we have to do our research and our due diligence. For a 21-year-old, it may take 3 months. It may take 5 months. For someone who's older, who've been in the military, you've lived in different communities, you've lived internationally, you have multiple different situations going on. You've worked 15 jobs compared to a 21-year-old who had their first job. It takes a while to process all of that. And, and sometimes, even today, my partner was in his office today and he's calling, trying to do a personal reference, and the person's like, well, I'm at work, I can't talk right now. Call me back at 9 tonight. So we have to be flexible as well as recruiters to be able to get the information we need to process the background. So again, it depends. 40-year-old versus a 21-year-old, that's the big difference.
Okay. Now, Frederick, you're our class president, right?
Yes, sir.
And you are part of the 181st recruit class, right?
Yes, sir.
So I was part of the 123rd recruit class. So I've been on about a little over 22 years, not as long as Chief Foster, but there's been a lot. Obviously, we've hired a lot of officers. Are you nervous?
I can't lie. There's some nerves in there right now, and I don't know if it's going out in the field or it's because it's the state exam next week. So it could be a little bit of both. But I'm excited to be able to be out there in the field.
So, Christina, tell me about that. So we have an exam next week. Tell me about, once you get in, tell me about what a typical day of a recruit looks like.
Right. So it can vary, really. It could start off with the morning with either PT, which is, physical exercise, which is required by the state. You could have a test the very first thing in the morning at 7 a.m. as well, sometimes 2 tests. Then usually there's instruction during the day, whether it's hands-on or practical training, or you could be driving, shooting. Just really depends where they're at in the academy. First couple weeks, you're probably just getting into some of your basic law enforcement training that's required by the state. So really, it just really varies. They're in for several months, so there's a lot to cover, and there's a lot that the state requires. We do go above and beyond what the state asks of us, which is great because you get more than what's expected. And that's probably the best thing for our department because we have some of those highly trained and qualified folks out here on the street in Charlotte.
Now, Frederick, what's the, I know I've talked to Christina and Bruce before a lot, and what's the physical fitness part? Is that something that scared you?
It didn't, because I felt like I was in shape, for the most part. The biggest thing was trying to keep up with the younger individuals in that class. I think for a 43-year-old, I'm in great shape. But when you compare that against, a 21, 22, 23-year-old, it kind of brings it down a couple of notches. So,
excellent. Now, Christina, what are some of the benefits of joining the police department?
Right. So we have competitive pay. We start you off at $44,362, and that's just with a high school diploma, which is the minimum requirement. You get a 5% bump if you have an associate's degree, which is great, and you get a 10% bump if you have a bachelor's degree. So there is an advantage to coming in with a college education. We accept any and all degrees, which is great. We don't just single out folks with criminal justice degrees or backgrounds. We have very good benefits, medical, dental, vision. We have tuition reimbursement. So if you do come in and you don't have a college education, we're willing to pay at the in-state rate for you to go back to school, as long as it applies to law enforcement in some aspect. We give you 10 to 20 vacation days per year. We're flexible with our military folks. Obviously, they have some obligations as well. So we have a lot of benefits. We have some of the best instructors in the state. I believe that wholeheartedly. Best training. We don't send you anyplace else. We do everything in-house. So I think we have a lot to offer for folks, for sure.
Now, Bruce, you do get paid to be in the academy, right?
Yes, and that's very beneficial for folks who are coming from out of state. Believe it or not, on testing last Saturday, I saw probably about 11 New York license, a couple of Florida, Alabama, and I asked them, I said, are you a current resident of Charlotte? And they're like, no, we drove all the way up from Florida just to come for testing. So that's very helpful when you have a family move into Charlotte and you're in this training phase of your career and you're being compensated for it. So that plays a big factor. And it's the, if you have a 4-year degree, you're getting the 4-year degree rate day one. You're getting the medical benefits, all the benefits from day one, which is something that we've transitioned to recently.
Now, tell me, Chief Foster, are you from Charlotte?
I am not. I am from Yanceyville, North Carolina, about 2 hours from here.
Now, did you come here back when you started your career? Did you come to Charlotte to be a police officer?
I came to Charlotte because there were a lot of McDonald's. So where I'm from, we didn't have those great things. And so when we came to visit, when I was doing my college tours, and we came to Charlotte, and I was like, oh my God, Mom, it's a McDonald's on every corner. I was like, I love this place. So I ended up going to college here at UNC Charlotte. And so then I stayed and applied to the police department right before I got out of college.
Now, is it something, tell me about that. Is it something, did you always want to be a police officer? Is it something that you wanted to do something else and you're like,
Yes.
how'd you end up being where you are? You're very successful as one of our assistant chiefs here, and
Amazing,
you've
right?
had a fantastic career, but bring me back to that first day. Like, what is it, or that first decision to join?
Well, in all honesty, which is always the crazy part of the story, no, I never wanted to be a police officer. I came from a town where we didn't even have police officers. We had like maybe 2 sheriff deputies, and I'm not sure that they had bullets in their guns at all. So I never really grew up around anything like that. However, a lot of my family were in law enforcement, and a lot of high-ranking officials throughout, from Secret Service to Washington, D.C. police. And so it had a lot of family members in law enforcement, but my degree was in psychology with a minor in criminal justice, and I wanted to be a psychiatrist. And I don't know, somewhere along the way, I realized I'd have to go to school for 4 more years after I finished, and just wasn't looking really good at the time. So that's when I looked at the criminal justice side, my minor, and it was a dare. I was dared by a girl at UNC Charlotte. We both applied together. We both got the job. And I rode with her the first day to the academy, and I did not have a ride home because she quit after PT. So.
Oh, you lost your ride in the academy.
In the academy the first day, yes, I did. Yeah, right after PT. She could not take the yelling and screaming at her for not being able to do the amount of push-ups she could do, and we all had to do them for her. So, of course, she got a lot of daggers from all of us, including myself. And she, went off to the locker room, and we all go off to class, and we come back, and she's gone.
And so you just took a Uber home, right?
No, back then we didn't have Ubers.
Oh,
We
that's
are talking the 90s. Yeah, so I had to make friends very quickly in the academy. So no, it's not something that I always wanted to do, but it has turned out to be a pretty challenging but yet rewarding career.
Excellent. Now, Frederick, what was your motivation for joining the police department or applying to the police department?
Just wanting to do more. Like I said before, I felt like I could give more than what I was doing now. Like I say, not to knock on security, but security is security. And, I wanted to get out, help people, whereas when I was in here, I was confined to just this building. So I would see the same people day in, day out. Things would start to get routine day in, day out. I feel like, being a police officer, I can interact with more people. It's always a different situation every day. Every call is going to be a different situation. You're going to be interacting with different people, different times, different, things going on with them in their lives. So it's a chance for me to get out there and see what I can really do and to use what I know and to put that in place.
Now, Bruce, Frederick's obviously a little bit older. Are there any age requirements to be a police officer?
No, and we welcome the diversity in ages to come to the department because, like Frederick, he brings a perspective from a 40-year-old. Just like myself, I'm in my 40s now, and the way I looked at life when I was in my 20s is far different from now. So, Frederick, you're going to appreciate when you're on the road and your buddy is, someone says something to him and you're going to grab him and say, you know what, let it go. We need that maturity. And likewise, and you go into situations because you are now, been able to, you married, you probably have kids, different things like that. You can look at situations a little differently. So, look, if you're 65 and you can deal with the physical fitness part of it, come on in. We'll make it happen. And we embrace that diversity of the workforce in our department.
So you don't need to live in North Carolina. at least initially, and there's really no age restriction. Are there any restrictions or anything that you would disqualify you from being a police officer?
Sure. One of the big ones, and I try to stress this to people, I said, you're going to be spending a lot of your day behind the wheel of a car. And if you have not shown a pattern of responsibility, to include paying off your citations, or at least not driving in a reckless manner, those things can limit your ability to become a police officer. Things such as driving, drugs. We got to talk about drugs. And if you have used marijuana within the last year, you probably want to wait a little bit more before you can apply. Credit is something else that we look at. We understand that people have to make difficult situations, and we just ask that you reach out to those creditors and start making an effort to honor those responsibilities. So those are just a few things. There's a lot of other things that we list not only online, but also we can have a discussion, when you come in for testing.
And you can go to our website at www.cmpd.org, right, and get that information there?
Yes.
Okay. And
can I interrupt you real quick, Lieutenant?
Sure.
So, and one thing that we ask of folks is important in our process is just be honest with us. Be upfront, because that's what we expect. Just lay it out there. We can work with a lot of things. So be honest about it from day one when you fill out that city application, and we're willing to work with most folks. So be honest. That's the most important thing. Be yourself too, and have heart, because it can be a long process, and we're doing the best to get you through there to seat you in an academy class. So.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Chief Foster, wouldn't you think, I guess, throughout your career, just to be honest? Because I think that's probably one of the things that, the department doesn't really look favorably on people who aren't truthful, right?
It's very true. Sometimes being honest is having you stand by yourself. And so a lot of times people don't want to speak up, and they don't want to say the things that need to be said because they don't want to be out there on an island by themselves. And so being honest is very important. And, you have to stand for something, or you'll fall for anything. And so it's really important to, when you see things that are not right, when you see whether it's, people, situations, policies, procedures, whatever it may be, that you speak up and, you say what needs to be said, and that you, be truthful about it. Because at the end of the day, if you're truthful and your heart is in the right place, you'll always win in the end.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Frederick, have you found any challenges kind of talking about the academy with, what's the most challenging thing that you've seen in the academy?
For me, I've been out of school now for 25 years. So the biggest challenge for me was sitting in that classroom 8 hours a day for the first couple of months. I'm used to moving around. So I felt like I was being confined to one space day in and day out. It seemed like time was just creeping by. So it was kind of exciting to get out the classroom and start doing other activities.
Yeah, when I started, we actually had to handwrite all our reports. We don't do any handwriting, right? You all have is everything on a computer now?
I started out, I'm one of those guys with the pen and pad, and I'm looking around, and all I hear is click, 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 and all these new recruits are on their laptops, and I'm still pen and pad. So I've adjusted to being on the computer more now. So
now, Christina, what's a typical day like for a recruit?
Right. So, like Frederick was saying, they're expected to be in at a certain time. It's usually before 7 a.m. They come in, they post colors, which is our flags, out front. They line up if they have PT until they're instructed on what they're going to be doing for the day, or they could be upstairs preparing for a test. Usually they take their test first things in the morning, and then their instructor will come in and lay out whether they're going through basic law enforcement, topic that day, or they might be downstairs in the DT room, which is where they'll learn hands-on training, cuffing, subject control, arrest techniques. They could be in the multi-purpose room, also learning how to use a lot of the tools on our belts, or also at our firing range where they learn how to shoot. There's a lot of instruction, not only hands-on, but also in the classroom. Once they conclude their day, usually around 4:30, they're done. They get to go home, which is great. We don't house folks. We don't have barracks. So you do get to go home, see your family, have that support, your family system. And then typically throughout those 25 weeks, there may be occasional second shift days where they have to come in and do nighttime precision driving and firearms and instruction. So, and everything is pass-fail through the academy. So, there's certain requirements that you have to meet in order to be successful. And then, like I was telling you, they get to go home. Most of the weekends off, so you do get to enjoy those, and most city holidays while you're in the academy, so enjoy it while it lasts, because it's going to change. But it's great. I mean, like I said, we have some of the best instructors in training in the state, and probably on the East Coast, which we're very fortunate for, and we do take care of our folks.
And you mentioned DT, that defensive tactics, right?
Correct.
And so the academy that the recruits are going through, is that something made up by the police department, or is it made up by the state?
Right. That's a really good question. So a lot of it's made up by the state. You have to actually be successful in certain techniques in order to pass that basic law enforcement training. So you do have to get signed off. But we do add, that's why I was telling you earlier, is we kind of go above and beyond what the state requires, and we do about 10 weeks above that. And we do give them extra training in how to handcuff, how to control subjects. Not only that, but also how to use your equipment, whether it's your body-worn camera, in-car stuff. We multitask in the police cars today. So there's a lot going on, and we want to make sure that we're sending folks, once they do graduate, they're going out there in the street with the best knowledge, the most up-to-date knowledge. So sometimes they come out and they know more than their PTOs, which is their training officer, and the other officers. So we're preparing them to go out there and be successful. Obviously, we don't want them to fail. That's our object.
Now, one of the things that we do in the academy is fire guns, right?
Correct.
Frederick, had you ever fired a gun before?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Because I had never fired a gun before. Bruce, how about you?
I had never touched a gun before I got to the police department. And the first day they brought it out, they were like, "Why are you sweating so bad?" I said, "Well, you put a gun in front of me. I've never touched it." But I'm telling you, it was refreshing to have instructors that walk you through the basics of a gun, but also, were patient enough to, teach you how to properly use it. And I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but, I've remembered those techniques from so many years ago that has, made it so safe for me to handle a gun, and, and the importance of the things that you have to do on a day-to-day basis to make sure that you stay safe as far as the way you deal with the gun.
Now, Frederick, you mentioned next week you have a test,
Yes,
right?
sir.
Tell me about that. What do you mean by that?
Everything that we've been taught from day one, from arrest, search, and seizures, fingerprints, juvenile, is on that test. It's a 300-question test, 4 hours to take it, and it's kind of your, I guess you say, make it or break it.
Now, that's state test, right?
Yes, sir. So it's you pass it, you move on. You fail it, you've kind of gave up 5 months of your life, pretty much to say. So our class is doing very well. I mean, we have study groups. I mean, we've got recruits staying over every day to study. We come in on the weekends, we're studying. So I think, I hope, and I pray that come after the test, we all get that thumbs up and get to move on to the next level.
Now, you're given instruction throughout, right? Each day,
Yes,
the
sir.
teachers come in, and it's sort of sounds like, if you're not in it, kind of like an adult playground, sort of, or an adult school where you get recess and you have, you get to go out and run a little bit. Is it sort of like that?
Unless you come back late. I mean, if you come back late, that adult class is out of the window. You pay for coming back late. But for the most part, yes, it is. And as far as the instructors, and I've told people outside of the academy, I think these are some great instructors. They set you up for success. I've yet to see an instructor to come in there with the attitude like, okay, this is what we're going over. It's up to you to retain it. I mean, they will get hands-on, one-on-one to make sure you know this information inside and out. So hats off to the instructors out there on that.
Now, what's your toughest? You kind of bristled at juvenile.
Juvenile.
Is it because it's difficult?
Trying to remember the different ages and what you can do to different aged individuals, and knowing that is changing this year, I think.
This year, December.
So it's kind of like everything that we're learning now, we're going to have to relearn in December.
Yeah, so Chief Foster, tell me, you get someone graduates from the academy and they're out, they really have a lot of discretion, right, to make decisions and just to try to do the right thing, right?
Yeah, you do. And it's a little scary too. 43-year-old may have a little bit better judgment, but, you have to, you worry sometimes. I mean, people haven't had a lot of life experiences, especially at the young age, the 22 and 23-year-olds. And so they do have a lot of discretion. They can make their, decisions to arrest or to not arrest or how to handle a situation. And so, we do the best we can in the academy to prepare them for situations that they will encounter. And, we just really hope that they'll make the right decision based upon the appropriate information. But yeah, I mean, it's sometimes it's a little scary.
Now, would you go through it again?
Oh, I'm supposed to speak, right?
Yeah, yes. That's where you say
yeah,
yes,
that's why I say yes or no. So let me say this. When I retire in December, I think it'll be once I see the other side. So I don't know what the other side looks like, and this is all I've done, obviously, outside of a few years prior to this job. I would say, I'm going to say yes, but there's so many caveats to that. And so to answer this quickly as I can, I'll say yes because I'm very pleased at where I'm at today.
Right.
Would I say yes to all that I've gone through in my career and the things that I've dealt with that the average person would not have had to deal with? Absolutely not. So it's two-sided. So it's about some of the things that you go through and some of the challenges that you go through as a woman, as an African-American woman. Would I want to go through those things again? Absolutely not. Am I happy to be where I am? Is it a great job? Is it a great career? Absolutely. So it's kind of a double edge. It's not, I wouldn't tell anyone definitely not to do it by any means. It is a individual choice, and you absolutely have to be built for this job. You have to be able to take what it brings to you, and everybody is not strong enough. Mm-hmm. Everybody cannot handle it. Everybody cannot handle what they get from the positive or the negative, from the community, from their family, from their friends. You hope that you're going to be treated equally. It is a man's world. It is a man's profession, and that has not changed. Granted, there are women breaking barriers all over the world. Hopefully, I'm one of them. But the reality of it is still very much a male-dominated profession. And so you have to know those things coming into the job. You have to be prepared for those things, and you have to be prepared for everybody's not going to want to see you rise through the ranks. And so you have to be prepared for that. And some people, they struggle with that.
Yeah, that's internally,
yes,
right? You're
absolutely.
talking. And then even I think from when I started 22 years ago, everybody has a cell phone now. Everybody's recording you. It's a different kind of world that we're living in. Frederick, are you ready for that?
I think I am. I say that now until I get out there. But overall, I think along with the training that I'm getting now from CMPD and the lessons I've learned over the years, I think I'll be successful out there in the field.
Now, Bruce, tell me, there's no maximum age, but is there a minimum age? Do you have to be a certain age to join the academy, or can you join out of high school?
You can actually start the process at 20, at age 20, but in order for you to sit in the classroom, you'll have to be 21. And, that'll give you enough time, like I said, between a lot of kids are young adults are in college and they're coming to their senior year. We actually advise them to go ahead and start the process so that by the time they graduate in that May or June, they're actually take a month off, enjoy the time with their family, and actually start their career the following month. So yeah, just having that time. And if I can, I would love to give this young man some advice if that's possible.
Absolutely.
And one thing I will say, coming into this profession when I was a little older, like yourself, one of the things that I will tell you is that you don't have to learn everything in one day. But the best advice I was given was that, if you do the right thing all the time, there's nothing for you to worry about. And that's really easy for you to do when your mindset is that what's in the best interest of the community, the department, and myself and my family. So that's my advice I would give anyone coming into this profession.
And just to be honest, right?
And be honest, because let me tell you, and I always say this, and I will continue to say it, we're not looking for perfect people, because if that was the case, I would not be here. Probably all of us at this table, have done some things when we were a lot younger that we wish we can take back. But, by the grace of time, we were able to reflect and said, you know what, I was able to overcome that one obstacle or that one situation and how it could have gone in a different path really quickly. But because, we were able to take a step back, and even now reflecting upon some of those, decisions, I'm like, man, I'm thankful that I had a chance to, it didn't affect my career to this point.
Now, we've all talked about kind of new people coming in. What if you're an officer at another department and do we let you transfer in?
I'm glad you asked that because both Christina and myself, we work with lateral transfers, and we love to have officers from different departments come to our department. They bring a level of experience that can add to our ranks. They bring a uniqueness that sometimes, we try to couple with a regular recruit class. So you'll have trained professional police officers there with a recruit class, giving them advice and talking them through situations. So yes, our lateral transfers, we require that you have 2 years of prior law enforcement experience at a current police department. Some sheriff's departments, we look at what, if they're responsible for patrol function, that's what we need. If you work in a jail or you work like Mecklenburg County, they don't do direct patrol, so they wouldn't be considered lateral transfers. So, but if you have 2 years of police direct patrol experience, that's what we're looking for.
And we accept applications the first 10 days of every month. Is that right?
For a regular recruit, yes. But for the lateral transfers, you can apply any day, anytime, and we will get back to you within a reasonable period of time. So,
now, if they're interested in applying, do they come to us or do they can they go online somewhere? Or is there a number that we call?
Sure. Everyone starts off the same. You can go online. We make it very easy. If you're in Massachusetts and you want to come to Charlotte and police in Charlotte and you're out of state lateral, go online, fill out the application, and one of our, either the two of us or one of the other lateral transfer investigators will get back to you and kind of see what your time frame is and try to make it work for you and your family. So a regular applicant, the 1st through the 10th, that's going into an academy class, the 1st through the 10th of every month. But for a lateral transfer, it's open 24 hours, 7 days a week for you to apply.
And that's at www.cmpd.org, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Excellent. We'll wrap up. A couple of things. Chief Foster, if there's one thing you could tell the young Vicky Foster just starting the academy, what's that?
I think that I would tell her, you can't change the world. I think everybody comes into this profession, with the right intentions and wanting to make changes. I would tell her you can't change the world, but you can change things a little bit at a time. And I would say find your voice very early. I would say know your worth. I would say don't be afraid to stand up for what is right at any point in time, even if it costs you what some people consider to be promotion and things that will continue to help you elevate in your career. I would tell the young Vicky, which she did most of this, but I would say understand that you're there for a greater purpose And that purpose is to speak for the powerless and to speak for those that can't speak for themselves, and to ensure that you treat everybody with dignity and respect, and to not judge people, to understand that people are in certain situations because of things that you yourself could never even imagine. And so when you go to areas that are lower socioeconomic areas, that you don't judge people, you don't know their story, and that your role is to help them in any way you can, and you don't become bitter and don't get upset because you can't change things as quickly as you would like. But if you change one, then it's worth it.
Absolutely. Great advice. I love those. That's one with a bunch of subsets, I guess. Frederick, how about you? What would you tell someone who's getting ready to start the academy or just wants to apply to the academy? Is there any piece of advice you would give them?
I would say go in open-minded. Take criticism very well. Don't go in thinking you know everything, because if you knew everything, you wouldn't be in there to start with. You'll already be out on the street. I think a lot of people struggle with criticism. I love criticism because it lets me know where I need to improve. I love scenario days at the academy. They throw you out there and put you in real life situations. And so it's kind of like you can sit there and read, but until you put that into play, I mean, how effective can you really be? So, but overall, I would just say go in open-minded. Be like a sponge.
Excellent. Christina, how about you?
Give it your all. You really have to be committed. It is a long journey. Like they say, the saying is, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And have heart, because it takes all kinds of different people, all different shapes and sizes. Everybody has something to add in their uniqueness. And, it's a long career, and be committed and dedicated to it. And be yourself, too. Be true to yourself. And you can really make a difference. I know we have our saying is be the difference. What you, like Chief was saying, is you can really make a difference. It might just be with one person, but give it your all and in your heart. And we want to see that too, because that motivates us. And I want to stand next to someone that has that heart as well when I'm out there on the front lines.
Bruce, how about you?
Just realize that you're a civil servant, and it's not about you. This job is not about getting rich. It's not about your uniform being crisp and you being the perfect picture of what, it's about coming into a place where you can give to a community that, need your service, and not take things personally. I've had a lot of things said to me over the course of the years, but I realize, that person is in crisis, or there's something going on that I don't understand. And even though I only have 5 to 10 minutes to try to, deal with that situation, I'm going to make it the best 5 or 10 minutes I can, so that that person can say, you know what, that officer gave me something I didn't have before, a tool that I can use to deal with my situation. So come in here knowing that it's not about you. It's about you serving a community that need you, and not to let that tarnish your attitude or change your perspective, and to be yourself.
Yeah, I tell my kids and younger officers, you just have to be unoffended. You got to be unoffendable in this job, because if you start taking what people tell you personally, it's going to be a tough day for you. So, I want to thank Assistant Chief Foster, Recruit Class President Frederick Wilds, who will be an officer in about 5 weeks. Hopefully, won't be Recruit Wilds, it'll be Officer Wilds.
Yes, sir.
And then want to thank our 2 recruiting experts, Officer Christina Frazita and Officer Bruce Edwards. And I want to thank the City of Charlotte for allowing CMPD to take over the Around the Crown podcast as we discussed recruitment on our very first podcast here. And I ask you to continue to tune in, and we will bring you more interesting topics in the future. With that, we thank you and hope you have a great day.